He was expected to age, escort his daughter down the aisle, and give one more smile on stage. Malcolm Jamal Warner, however, was buried in silence. And now there is no more silence. It began with a mother in mourning, a USB drive that shouldn't have been in existence, and a shaking voice. With the last piece of evidence that would make all the difference, Pamela Warner stood in front of the world, broken but unflinching, her voice, her hands shaking with truth, her eyes swollen from years of crying. A man was just arrested because of that voice, because Bill Cosby is handcuffed today. Furthermore, Malcolm's passing is no longer regarded as an accident. The world witnessed Pamela's tear-stained confession. The words that no mother should ever have to utter were heard by them. He was not drowned. The same machine that buried the brave and shielded monsters drowned him in silence and power. The papers were authentic. The videos were authentic. The most genuine aspect of all was the anguish. A scary note, a final video, and a secret folder. Allow the water to remove it. They didn't anticipate a mother's fire, but they believed they could destroy him. The apparatus that attempted to keep Malcolm quiet is now breaking down. This goes beyond a simple scandal. It's a reckoning, a war cry, and a heartbreak. Bill Cosby has been taken into custody. However, the true tale is only getting started because Malcolm failed to say farewell. He left a task behind. His truth is now blaring through all of the screens. The world didn't anticipate that moment. A swarm of flashing lights outside the federal courtroom in Los Angeles. Barricades are pushed past by reporters. In the street, fans are crying, slowly. Approaching is a black SUV. The door then opens. With federal officers at his sides, Bill Cosby remains silent and expressionless. This sequence wasn't from a movie. There was no dream here. It was occurring, and it was genuine. No one ever imagined it would get to this point, despite years of circulating rumors, whispers, and conspiracy theories. It wasn't until Pamela Warner protested, "He killed my son." Her voice did not sound artificially painful. There was no script. It was uncooked. It weighed a lot. And it contained all of a mother's sorrow turned into a weapon by the truth. She had no desire for vengeance. Justice was what she sought, not only for Malcolm, but for all the voices that had ever been muffled by cleverly drafted NDAs and Hollywood smiles. At this point, the hush ended. Malcolm Jamal Warner was regarded by the globe as the symbol of a generation. Theo Huxtable's spirit, the youngster who grew up on screen, the man whose laughter once filled millions of homes. However, that laughter ceased. According to the official report, he drowned. A stroll on the beach in the twilight during a tranquil Costa Rican holiday. There is no indication of foul play, not a witness. The case is over, or so they believed. Mothers, however, never forget. Not the tone of their last phone contact with their child, not the apprehension in his tone, not the mysterious words he scribbled. "Tell the world I wasn't lying if something were to happen to me, Mom." Something about the tale never felt right, so Pamela Warner was never able to move on. She then discovered the USB concealed in Malcolm's old winter coat's inner unopened and still sealed, 5 eerie words on the envelope. "If something were to happen to me," when she plugged it in, her hands shook. As the files opened, she gasped, and everything fell apart for her. Confidential documents, call logs, secret recordings, wire transfers, NDAs signed by influential people, a digital archive of horror, and a folder named simply Shadow Network were all hidden deep within the drive. And Bill Cosby's name kept coming. Up, circled, underlined, and repeated in every document, transcript, and thread. At first, it didn't make sense. Not to the public, not to Pamela. Why would a once-adored TV personality be connected to her son's passing? But Malcolm's voice in the video didn't come from an interview or show. This was not like the others. He was by himself, his voice low, his face haggard, and his eyes tired. "I didn't make it. If you're viewing this, or I was prevented from doing so by someone." He described a network, a system, and a silent machine that were designed to eliminate anyone who knew too much as well as to conceal misuse. "They don't just silence you, they erase you. They rewrite your story," he continued. "Make sure that nobody even inquires about the true circumstances." Pamela collapsed to her knees. She realized then that her son's death was not an accident. She had the evidence that he had been eliminated. She brought it directly to the Justice Department. The records, the data, the videos, everything. For weeks, she waited. Nothing. Her phone then chimed one evening, a single message, unknown number. Look at the news. Banner for breaking news. Every important outlet. The DOJ affirms the federal investigation into the death of Malcolm Jamal Warner. However, the story that went viral on the internet stated that Bill Cosby was being investigated by the authorities in relation to the Warner case. A federal warrant was issued within 48 hours. Bill Cosby was taken into prison. Pamela sat in her living room and watched the coverage. Tears, no victory speech, no joy. After years of silence, someone finally listened. At last, her son was spotted. Supporters gathered outside the courthouse. Paintings, posters, and candles. The USB film had started to leak, and one of them said, "He didn't drown, he was drowned." Online, snippets of Malcolm's parting message were making the rounds. There were whistleblowers, legal aides, former studio employees, and even a late-night producer. The country was chilled by one voicemail. "We were instructed not to alter his video. He knew he had evidence, but we were advised to let it go." He was also preparing to go public. Pamela Warner was no longer merely a distraught mother. She represented a movement. Her name was in every headline. Her statements were quoted in every interview. Her truth was echoed by every voice. He didn't simply pass away. They erased him. And until the world finds out who did it, I won't stop. The world listened, since the device that had previously hushed victims was now being attacked. The man who once called America's father was at the heart of it, being referred to as something far darker now. Cosby's lawyers hurried. Reporters were ghosted by PR firms. The executives fell silent. Social media was cleaned. However, it was too late. The documents were available. The people knew the truth. And a mother's love has just revealed the system that had formerly shielded predators. They believed that by killing the messenger, they could destroy the message. Pamela did more than simply spread the word, though. She struck the match that destroyed their entire life-filled home. Bill Cosby is now being held. Furthermore, Malcolm's narrative is only getting started. They believed it was over. The disappearance of Pamela Warner, that the clamor would subside, that in a week this will just be another viral event. It wasn't just noise, though. It echoed through a damaged world. Like a mother's wail, there was proof behind that cry that was so explosive it might bring down entire empires. Every department in Hollywood was rocked by Bill Cosby's arrest. However, that was only the start, because the world finally saw the monster behind the mask. When the DOJ opened the first evidence vault from what is now known as the Warner Archive, and nobody was prepared. It began with a classified internal use-only memo dated June 18, 2025, 2 days prior to Malcolm's passing. Subject: Warner crisis containment scenario getting worse. Inside, executives outlined detailed plans to discredit Malcolm before he could make a public statement. It wasn't metaphor. It was murder disguised in media jargon. One terrifying line said, "If containment fails, redirect through tragedy." The ocean remains a viable optic. The letter wasn't the only thing found. There were dozens of audio files, including voice notes Malcolm took while digging, meeting recordings, and phone conversations. In one of the calls, a network executive states, "He's not a kid anymore. He's intelligent. He is observing trends. We will all be F*** edition if he reveals what he has. Let's make sure he doesn't respond after another voice responds." Then came the video that shattered Pamela. Piece 7, which was a concealed camera feed. Dimly lit, shaky, but definitely there, clearly nervous. Malcolm is skimming through documents. At his home office, he stares into the webcam and inhales deeply. "No one will believe it if I don't record this, even if I shouldn't, not even my mother." He grabs a voice recorder. He murmurs, "Tonight, they gave me a call. I'm risking everything," they said. "However, what should I do? Remain silent, give them the victory." A knock on the door followed. The video cuts when Malcolm flinches, freezes, and switches off the camera. After that night, Pamela claimed she never saw him again. Not only rage, but also mourning erupted on social media. Sadness because we were never fully aware of Malcolm's suffering, that a man was being pursued behind each red carpet grin. Within 48 hours, 10 million people used the #justice formal. Protests broke out in Toronto, Atlanta, New York, and Los Angeles. Graffiti on Sunset Boulevard. He was not drowned. They hushed him. Overnight, murals appeared. Malcolm's expression next to the phrase, "He was eliminated." We recall, now even famous people who had previously kept quiet were speaking up. A famous actor from a sitcom posted, "He warned me of a major development. I didn't pay attention. I ought to have." Another former castmate broke down in tears as he went live, stating that he attempted to warn us. He did. The DOJ, meanwhile, kept investigating and discovered something more sinister than anyone had anticipated. A 32-page guide explaining how to remove someone without touching them was included in a file called the Silence Machine version 2.0. Detailed instructions: make up a scandal. Rumors about plant mental wellness. Real stories can be buried by using Clip 8 News. Postpone requests for a FOIA. Reward the local cops. Make settlement offers to survivors. Cosby wasn't being protected by a single individual. It was a money-driven, lawyer-run system that was kept in check by fear. Malcolm was prepared to bring it down when he had mapped it out and hacked into it. However, someone reached him before the second leak then appeared. This one came from within one of the networks listed in Malcolm's files, not the DOJ, a hard disk. Only a folder named buried with no name or return address. Transcripts, emails, and a risk assessment from Cosby's former public relations firm were all included. A worst-case scenario was described in one document. The mitigating protocol should be activated if Warner publishes keep an eye on movements. Have a backup plan in case extraction doesn't work. Once more, that word. Backup plan. A sterile term for something lethal. My God, they planned everything, Pamela whispered as she read it 17 times while clutching her son's hoodie. Cosby's attorneys referred to the documents as doctored. In court, hackers were held accountable. They referred to it as a heartbroken mother's smear campaign. The voice memo, which Malcolm recorded, without realizing the microphone was still on, followed. He's talking to himself, breathing heavily, and walking in it. I have a choice, they stated. He can live quietly. He chuckles, speak, and well. Here we are. It isn't working. I no longer feel afraid. I simply won't be there since I'm exhausted. Quiet. Pamela posted the video with just one caption. I didn't lose my son. Money, monsters, and stillness smothered him. The nation was now paying attention. Senators demanded a review by Congress. The appointment of a special counsel. Internal inquiries were started by networks. According to federal authorities, Bill Cosby's detention was only the first step. Pamela wasn't finished, though. She let out one last piece. Malcolm left her a letter. It said, I know you'll fight, and I know the truth will outlive me, so it's okay if you're reading. This and that means I didn't make it. Don't let them erase me, Mom. I love you. She always has the letter with her. Tear-stained, folded and worn, yet strong. His mug's picture is currently the most shared image on the internet in a world where Cosby used to dominate the screen. He faces a slew of charges while incarcerated, but more than that, he faces the truth. He attempted to conceal the same reality by remaining silent. Malcolm did not survive to witness this day, but it was made possible by everything he left behind, because he was more than simply an actor after all. He was a truth-teller, a whistleblower, and a son who refused to close his eyes when he witnessed the evil, and the voice he never had was the mother who gave him life. This is more than just a tale. It's a revolution. The quiet business is on the verge of collapse. It's also a reminder. The message cannot be killed, but the messenger can. There was silence in the courtroom. Not the peaceful kind of silence, but the kind that feels like a stone pressing down on your chest. The kind of screaming that doesn't make noise. Surrounded by attorneys who no longer exuded confidence, but rather fear. Bill Cosby sat at the defense table with a blank expression and rigid shoulders. Pamela Warner is standing across the room. Holding the folded letter her son left behind with her head held high, the world was watching, and this was more than simply a trial, it was a reckoning. Inside, cameras were prohibited. However, the events that transpired in that courtroom were soon made public. One witness after another stepped forward. Departed executives, studio editors, and former assistants, everyone finally takes a step forward. They are all repeating the same truth. We were instructed to keep quiet. We were compensated to forget. They were aware that he knew too much. The last blow was delivered by an unexpected man, a former bodyguard, Cosby's own. As he testified, his voice trembled. Malcolm was to be watched by me, to follow him, not to protect him. At first, I didn't know why, but on the day of his death, I did. Someone called me. Just one sentence. Get down, it's taken care of. Gasps could be heard across the courtroom. The judge appeared unmoving as well. Cosby said nothing at all because he was at a loss for words. Malcolm had chronicled everything he had feared, and now it was all being set out, and no one could stop it. Crowds outside held signs and candles while they waited. Some people cried. Malcolm's picture was displayed by some. Others simply stood silently. Finally, there was a meaningful silence. Millions of people watched for updates online. #S were popular once more. #formal justice. Did he not drown? Although the machine began tumbling, nobody was prepared for what happened next. The second hard disk? Pamela had yet to share it. She was keeping it for herself. It's for the people, not the courts or the press. This drive revealed more than simply names. The system was made public. It contained meeting transcripts, surveillance footage, and agreements between law enforcement and networks. Stamped documents provide more than just internal information. At the heart of it all is a comprehensive operational map of the ECHO procedure. It served as their last line of defense, a digital kill button that would permanently silence anyone who spoke up and destroy the reputation of any implicated celebrities. Malcolm had gradually put everything together, file by file, and he had kept it concealed for his mother, not for himself. Now she was prepared to reveal it to the world. She uploaded everything, each and every file, name and plan. No redactions, no filters, no fear. The internet disintegrated, not simply exploded. On live broadcast, news anchors froze. Attorneys declined to be interviewed. Overnight, executives quit. Whole networks fell down. The names started to tumble, one by one. However, it all began with the loudest fall. Bill Cosby was formally charged with conspiracy, obstruction, and accessory to murder 3 weeks after his arrest. The media attempted to distort it. It was referred to as unprecedented by some. Some people continued to use the word alleged. However, Malcolm's voice, his papers, and the fire Pamela wouldn't let go had already spoken the truth. Pamela never sought notoriety. Despite her aversion to being on camera, she became a memorable figure. She only appeared before reporters once. She whispered, holding Malcolm's picture to her chest. Despite their best efforts, they were only able to make his voice louder. Then she turned to leave. Just the facts, no cheers or press releases. From the ashes, Malcolm's legacy started to emerge. Archives were established by universities in his honor. In his honor, advocacy organizations received funding. Every coast had murals made by artists. A street in his hometown was renamed Warner Way, with his face encircled by flames and the words, "They can kill the messenger, but not the message." In addition, the folder he originally called Shadow Network is now taught in law schools as the Hollywood case that revolutionized the industry. The final, unreleased, untouched footage that was stored on the second hard disk, however, was the most impactful moment. Final FAL.MPP for label. Pamela took a while to view it. She bided her time till justice had been served. She then sat by herself one evening, lighted a lamp, and hit play. Malcolm showed up, calm yet exhausted. He no longer had fear in his eyes. He gave one smile. He paused and inhaled. "Hey, Mom, if you're watching this, then I guess it's over. Or maybe it's just beginning. It was not because I wanted to be a hero that I did this. Someone had to do it, so I did it. You have always advised me to speak up when it counts. This is important, though." He gazed directly into the camera. "I had you, even if they tried to drown me in quiet. I also knew you would complete the task I began." His voice broke. "Mom, you are loved. I apologize, but I appreciate that you have." The loudest voice I've ever heard. The video came to an end. And she didn't cry. "Pamela, you were never erased. You were etched into history. She closed the laptop, kissed the letter, and whispered, "Now the world remembers Malcolm not just as a star, but as a symbol, a reminder that truth buried in silence can still rise and burn the world awake." Bill Cosby is still in jail, but the arrest wasn't the bigger win. This isn't the end. It's a warning to all predators hiding behind contracts, to all executives trading silence for profit, to all machines built on fear and cover-ups. Your time is up. It was the shift, the awakening, the exposure of the system that allowed him and so many others to remain untouchable. That system broke because of a son's bravery and a mother's refusal to let him be forgotten. Malcolm Jamal Warner didn't die in silence. He died because of silence. If you've read this far, you already know that this isn't just a story. It's a warning, a scream that rose from the grave. Malcolm didn't just leave behind a scandal. He left behind a map, and we're following it. The system that killed Malcolm, the machine that paid for silence, erased evidence, and traded truth for contracts, is still alive, still watching, still waiting to bury the next voice that dares to speak, because he dared to speak, because he had the courage to say what others only whispered. And now Bill Cosby is behind bars. But do you really think this ends here? Don't scroll away. Speak his name. Type "Justice for Malcolm" in the comments. Share this video. Mirror it. Repost it. Let the silence know that we hear the truth now. If this video disappears, you know why. Unless we stop it, unless we make sure that this story isn't just remembered, but repeated, echoed, screamed. They thought they could kill the message, but now you carry it. Make them hear it. Malcolm left behind a mission, not a farewell. Hit that like button if this broke you. Subscribe so you never miss the next truth they try to bury. And turn on notifications, because what's coming next might be even darker than this.